Look carefully at this truth. The moment you beg for love, you lose it. Not because you are unworthy, but because love cannot survive where self-respect dies. There is a silent law in life. What you chase desperately runs away from you. What you stand firm in comes toward you. And yet, many people break themselves trying to hold on to someone who is already letting go. Today, you will understand why. Love that must be begged for is already gone. There is a difference between love and attachment. Love flows naturally. It doesn't need convincing. It doesn't require you to shrink yourself just to be accepted. The moment you start begging, "Please stay. Please don't leave. Please love me the way I love you," you are no longer in a relationship. You are in a negotiation where you are losing. Story. A man once noticed his partner growing distant. She stopped replying quickly. She stopped caring. He felt it. Instead of stepping back, he leaned in harder. He sent long messages. He apologized for things he didn't do. He tried to prove his worth. But the more he tried, the colder she became. One day, she finally left. And only then did he realize. She didn't leave that day. She left the moment he started begging. Self-respect is more attractive than neediness. People are not drawn to desperation. They are drawn to strength, calmness, and emotional control. When you beg for love, you communicate something without words. "I don't believe I can be loved without forcing it." And that energy pushes people away. But when you stand firm, when you accept reality, when you say nothing and walk away, that creates impact. Story. A woman tested a man by pulling away slightly. She expected him to chase her, call nonstop, and panic. But he didn't. He stayed calm. He continued living his life. He didn't beg. He didn't complain. Days later, she came back, more interested than before. Why? Because he showed something rare. He could live without her. And that made him valuable. The Stoic understands what he cannot control. You cannot control how someone feels about you. You cannot force attraction. You cannot negotiate desire. You cannot beg someone into loving you. This is where most people suffer. They try to control the uncontrollable. A Stoic mind understands this clearly. If it is not within my control, I release it. Love falls into that category. You can give love, but you cannot demand it in return. Story. A man spent years trying to make someone love him. He changed his personality. He changed his habits. He even changed his values. Still, it wasn't enough. One day, exhausted, he stopped trying. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. And in that moment, he felt something new. Peace. For the first time, he wasn't chasing. He wasn't begging. He was free. Begging destroys your inner strength. Every time you beg for love, you train your mind to believe you are not enough. And over time, that belief becomes your identity. You start to think, "I need someone to complete me. I am nothing without them. I must hold on, no matter what." This is dangerous, because it turns love into dependency. And dependency destroys power. Story. A young man stayed in a toxic relationship for years. He knew he was being disrespected, ignored, taken for granted. But he stayed. Why? Because he believed he couldn't do better. One day, she left anyway. And he hit rock bottom. But slowly, he rebuilt himself. He worked on his body, his mind, his purpose. Years later, he looked back and realized the moment she left was the moment he began to rise. Walking away is not weakness. Many people think leaving means losing. But in reality, walking away is often the greatest act of strength. It means you chose yourself over temporary attachment. It means you value your peace more than unstable affection. It means you understand this truth. Anything that costs me my self-respect is too expensive. Story. A man discovered his partner no longer valued him. Instead of arguing, instead of begging, he simply said, "I understand." And he left. No drama. No noise. Months later, she tried to come back. But he had already changed. He didn't hate her. He didn't resent her. He had simply outgrown the version of himself that needed her. Silence is more powerful than pleading. When people lose interest, they expect a reaction. They expect you to chase, to beg, to fight for their attention. Silence disrupts that expectation. It shows emotional control. It shows discipline. It shows strength. And most importantly, it protects your dignity. Story. A woman stopped replying to a man for days. He saw the messages. He felt the urge to double text, to ask questions, to demand answers. But he didn't. He stayed silent. Days turned into a week. Then suddenly, she replied, "Why did you stop texting?" He smiled. Because for once, he wasn't the one chasing. You teach people how to treat you. Every time you tolerate disrespect. Every time you beg for attention. Every time you accept less than you deserve. You are teaching people how to treat you. If you accept crumbs, you will never receive the full meal. If you chase, you will always be the one behind. But if you stand firm, if you walk away when necessary, you set a standard. And only those who meet it will stay. Story. A man always replied instantly. Always made time. Always prioritized someone who barely noticed him. One day he stopped. Not to play games, but to reclaim himself. And suddenly, everything changed. The same person who ignored him now started chasing him. But by then, he had learned something important. Attention gained through begging is never real. The right person will not require you to beg. This is the simplest truth, yet the hardest to accept. The right person will choose you, naturally. You won't have to convince them. You won't have to chase them. You won't have to beg them. They will meet you halfway, or more. Anything less is not alignment. It is imbalance. Story. After years of chasing the wrong people, a man finally met someone different. She responded with interest. She showed effort. She valued his presence. At first, it felt strange, because he was used to struggle. But slowly, he understood. Love is not supposed to feel like war. Detachment is power. Detachment does not mean you don't care. It means you care, without losing yourself. It means you can love, without needing. It means you can walk away, without breaking. This is true power. Because once you master detachment, you are no longer controlled by fear of loss. And when you are not afraid to lose, you become impossible to control. Story. A man once feared losing someone so much, he lost himself instead. But after that relationship ended, he rebuilt differently. He learned to love without clinging. And when he entered his next relationship, he noticed something. He was calmer, stronger, more in control. For the first time, he wasn't afraid. Choose yourself, every time. At the end of everything, this is the lesson. Choose yourself. Not in arrogance, but in self-respect. Not in pride, but in clarity. Because the moment you choose yourself, you stop begging. You stop chasing. You stop settling. And life begins to change. Final story. A man once asked an old mentor, "How do I make someone love me?" The mentor smiled and said, "You don't. You become someone who doesn't need to ask." Perfect. Here's a continuation of your script, same tone, no numbering, deeper and more intense. Most people don't realize this. Begging for love doesn't just push others away. It slowly erases who you are. At first, it feels small. You ignore a little disrespect. You accept delayed replies. You pretend not to notice the change in energy. You tell yourself, It's nothing. But deep down, you feel it. And instead of facing that truth, you try harder. You give more. You sacrifice more. You lower yourself, just to keep them. And without realizing it, you begin to disappear. There is a dangerous illusion many people believe. If I just love them harder, they will love me back. But love doesn't work like that. Effort cannot create desire. Sacrifice cannot force attraction. Loyalty cannot fix indifference. You can give someone everything and still not be enough for them. Not because you lack value, but because you are giving to the wrong person. Story. A man once gave everything to a woman he loved. His time. His energy. His attention. He was always available. Always understanding. Always forgiving. But she kept pulling away. One night, after pouring his heart out in a long message, he waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. Finally, she replied with one word. Okay. In that moment, something inside him broke. Not because of her response, but because he realized the truth. He had been giving his all to someone who barely cared. Pain has a purpose. It reveals what you refuse to see. When someone makes you feel unwanted, that is information. When someone makes you question your worth, that is a signal. When someone only values you when it's convenient, that is clarity. But most people ignore these signs. Why? Because they are afraid to lose the person. So instead, they lose themselves. The Stoic does not chase what is leaving. He observes. He understands. And then, he decides. Not based on emotion, but on truth. If someone's actions show disinterest, he believes them. If someone withdraws, he does not beg them to stay. He steps back. Because he understands something powerful. Rejection is not a loss. It is redirection. You must learn to sit with silence. Not every distance needs to be closed. Not every gap needs to be filled. Sometimes, silence is the answer. Sometimes, the lack of effort is the message. And the strongest thing you can do is accept it without resistance. Story. A man noticed the woman he cared about stopped putting in effort. No more calls. No more interest. No more energy. His mind raced with questions. Did I do something wrong? Should I fix this? Should I try harder? But instead of reacting, he paused. For the first time, he did nothing. Days passed. Then weeks. She never came back. And while it hurt, he gained something greater. Clarity. Because now he knew. Without begging, without chasing, without losing himself, there is strength in restraint. Anyone can react. Anyone can chase. Anyone can beg. But not everyone can remain still. Not everyone can walk away quietly. Not everyone can accept loss without collapsing. That is discipline. That is control. That is power. When you stop begging for love, you begin to see people differently. You notice who truly values you. You notice who only stays when it benefits them. You notice who disappears when you stop chasing. And that awareness changes everything. Because now, you are no longer blind. Respect is earned through behavior, not words. You can say, I love you, 1,000 times. But if your actions show inconsistency, it means nothing. And the same applies to you. If you allow inconsistency, if you tolerate neglect, if you accept being an option, you are telling people, this is enough for me. And they will believe you. You don't need to prove your worth. The right people will recognize it. The wrong people will overlook it. And chasing those who overlook you is a battle you will never win. Story. A man kept trying to impress someone who barely noticed him. He dressed better, spoke better, acted better. Still, nothing changed. Then one day, he stopped trying. Not out of anger, but out of realization. And as he shifted his focus back to himself, something unexpected happened. Someone new entered his life. Someone who appreciated him, without effort. And that's when it finally made sense. He was never the problem. He was just trying to be seen by the wrong eyes. Loneliness is not the enemy. Desperation is. Being alone teaches you strength. It teaches you clarity. It teaches you self-reliance. But begging destroys all of that. Because it puts your happiness in someone else's hands. And that is a dangerous place to be. You must become comfortable with losing people. Not everyone is meant to stay. Not everyone is meant to understand you. Not everyone is meant to choose you. And that's okay. Because every person who leaves creates space for someone better aligned. But that only happens if you let them go. Control your emotions, or they will control you. The urge to beg comes from fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of being replaced. Fear of not being enough. But fear is not truth. And if you act based on fear, you will always make the wrong decision. The Stoic pauses. He feels the emotion, but he does not obey it. At some point, you have to decide. Do I want to be chosen? Or do I want to be begged for? Because you cannot be both. The moment you start begging, you remove the possibility of being chosen freely. And love without freedom is not love at all. Time reveals everything. You don't need to force answers. You don't need to chase clarity. Just watch. Watch who stays. Watch who fades. Watch who only appears when it's convenient. And let their actions speak. Because actions never lie. The moment you truly understand your value, begging becomes impossible. Not because you don't care, but because you respect yourself too much. You realize, I would rather lose someone than lose myself trying to keep them. And that mindset changes your entire life. There comes a moment when you get tired, not of loving, but of trying to convince someone to love you back. You feel it in your chest. That quiet exhaustion. You stop overthinking every message. You stop checking your phone every minute. You stop hoping they'll suddenly become who you needed them to be. And in that moment, something shifts. You begin to wake up. Clarity often arrives after disappointment. Not before. Because when everything feels good, you ignore the signs. You overlook the red flags. You justify the distance. You excuse the inconsistency. But pain forces you to see. It removes the illusion and replaces it with truth. And the truth is simple. If someone wanted to stay, they would. Stop romanticizing potential. People fall in love with who someone could be. Instead of accepting who they are, you tell yourself, they'll change. They're just going through something. They don't mean it. But reality doesn't bend for your hopes. People show you who they are, repeatedly. And every time you ignore it, you pay the price. Story. A man stayed with someone who constantly disrespected him. Not openly, but subtly. Late replies. Broken promises. Half-hearted effort. But he held on to hope. He believed one day she would become the person he imagined. Years passed. Nothing changed. And one day, he finally accepted it. He wasn't in love with her. He was in love with an idea. And that idea never existed. You cannot build a future on inconsistency. Consistency is the foundation of trust. Without it, everything collapses. No matter how strong the feelings are. If the actions don't match, it will fail. And the longer you stay, the more damage it does to you. Because you start to normalize chaos. Emotional dependence is a silent trap. It doesn't feel dangerous at first. It feels like connection. Like attachment. Like love. But slowly, it takes control. Your mood depends on their attention. Your happiness depends on their presence. Your peace depends on their behavior. And without realizing it, you lose control of your own life. The Stoic breaks that cycle. He finds stability within himself, not in another person. You don't need closure from them. This is something many people struggle with. They want answers. They want explanations. They want one final conversation to understand everything. But the truth is, closure is something you give yourself, not something you wait for. Because most people will never explain their actions clearly. They will confuse you, avoid you, or say things that don't match their behavior. And if you depend on them for closure, you will stay stuck. Story. A man kept waiting for an explanation from someone who hurt him. He replayed every moment, every conversation, every detail. Weeks turned into months. Still, no answers. One day he stopped. Not because he got clarity, but because he chose peace. He realized something powerful. I don't need their explanation to move on. And that was the moment he became free. Respect is not negotiated. You either have it, or you don't. And if someone makes you feel like you have to earn basic respect, you are in the wrong place. No amount of love, no amount of effort, no amount of patience will fix a lack of respect. Because respect is a choice. And if they're not choosing it, you should choose to leave. You must learn to walk away early. Not when you're completely broken. Not when you've lost everything. But when you first notice the signs. The disrespect. The inconsistency. The lack of effort. Because the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to leave. There is a quiet confidence in those who don't chase. They don't need to announce their value. They don't need to prove their worth. They simply exist. And allow the right people to recognize it. And if someone doesn't, they don't argue. They don't beg. They move on. Your time is your most valuable asset. Every moment you spend chasing someone is a moment you could have invested in yourself, in your growth, in your purpose, in your future. And one day, you will look back and realize you weren't rejected. You were distracted. Sometimes, the lesson is the loss. Not every relationship is meant to last. Some are meant to teach you what to accept, what to avoid, what you truly deserve. And once you learn that lesson, holding on becomes unnecessary. You deserve consistency. You deserve effort. You deserve clarity. You deserve peace. Not confusion. Not mixed signals. Not emotional chaos. And the moment you truly believe that, you stop settling for less. The strongest mindset you can develop is this: I am okay with losing anything that isn't right for me. That mindset removes fear. And once fear is gone, you become powerful. Because now, your decisions are no longer driven by desperation. They are driven by self-respect. People often come back after you stop chasing. Not always, but often. And when they do, it reveals something important. They didn't value you when you were available. They valued you when you became unavailable. But by then, you must ask yourself, do I want someone who only sees my worth when I'm gone? Discipline in love is rare. Most people are controlled by their emotions. They react instantly. They chase endlessly. They hold on desperately. But discipline means choosing differently. It means stepping back when you want to move forward. It means staying silent when you want to speak. It means walking away when you want to stay. And that is what separates the strong from the weak. You are not hard to love. You are just surrounded by people who don't know how to love properly. And once you understand that, you stop blaming yourself. You stop overthinking. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to fix. At some point, you realize peace feels better than attention. Silence feels better than confusion. Clarity feels better than chasing. And once you experience that kind of peace, you never go back. If someone leaves, let them. If someone changes, accept it. If someone chooses differently, respect it. But never beg them to stay. Because the moment you do, You abandon yourself. At some point, you stop asking, "Why didn't they choose me?" And you start asking a better question. Why was I trying so hard to be chosen by someone who couldn't see my worth? That shift changes everything. Because now, you are no longer chasing validation. You are questioning your standards. There is a hidden cost to begging for love. It's not just rejection. It's self-betrayal. Every time you ignore your intuition. Every time you accept less than you deserve. Every time you silence your own needs. You are choosing them over yourself. And the more you do that, the more disconnected you become from who you truly are. Your intuition always knows. That feeling in your chest. That quiet voice telling you something is off. That's not insecurity. That's awareness. But many people ignore it. Because the truth is uncomfortable. It tells you, they're not right for you. They don't value you the same way. This is not going where you hope it will. And instead of listening, you try to fix it. You try to force it. You try to hold on to something that was never meant to stay. You cannot force alignment. Two people are either aligned, or they are not. In values. In effort. In emotional maturity. And when there is no alignment, there will always be tension. Always confusion. Always imbalance. No matter how much you care. The truth most people avoid is this. Not everyone you love is meant to be in your life. And accepting that is one of the hardest things you will ever do. Because love makes you hold on. But wisdom teaches you to let go. There is power in letting people misunderstand you. In not explaining yourself endlessly. In not trying to prove your intentions. In not fighting to be seen correctly. Because the right people will understand you without effort. And the wrong ones will misunderstand you no matter what you say. So why exhaust yourself trying to control their perception? You don't lose people by having standards. You lose the wrong people. And that is not a loss. That is protection. Because standards act as a filter. They remove those who cannot meet you and make space for those who can. Growth requires separation. You cannot become your strongest self while holding on to what weakens you. Sometimes, the person you want is the very person you need to walk away from. Not because they are bad, but because they are not right for who you are becoming. There is a version of you that no longer tolerates what you're accepting right now. A version of you that walks away sooner. That speaks less and observes more. That chooses peace over attachment. That version of you already exists. You just have to step into it. Stop giving people unlimited access to you. Your time. Your energy. Your attention. These are valuable. And not everyone deserves them. When you give them freely to those who don't appreciate them, you reduce their value. But when you become selective, everything changes. You are not an option. You are not something people pick up when they're bored and drop when something better comes along. And if someone treats you that way, the answer is not to try harder. The answer is to leave. The moment you detach, you see everything clearly. No more excuses. No more illusions. No more false hope. Just truth. And truth is what sets you free. You don't need to win someone over. You don't need to compete for attention. You don't need to prove that you're enough. Because the right connection does not feel like competition. It feels like mutual effort. Your energy should be matched, not managed. You shouldn't have to calculate how much to text, how long to wait, how much to give. When something is real, it flows naturally. Without games. Without confusion. Without force. There is dignity in walking away quietly. No announcements. No long explanations. No emotional outbursts. Just a decision. A calm, controlled decision to choose yourself. And that kind of exit speaks louder than anything you could ever say. One day, it will all make sense. The rejection. The distance. the unanswered messages. You will see that it wasn't happening to you. It was happening for you. To redirect you. To protect you. To prepare you. But you can only see that. Once you stop chasing what wasn't meant for you, you are not missing out by letting the wrong person go. You are making space for the right one. But that only works if you truly let go. Not half holding. Not secretly hoping. But fully releasing. There is a calmness that comes when you finally understand. I don't need anyone to choose me, because I have already chosen myself. That calmness is powerful. It removes desperation. It removes fear. It removes the need to beg. And once that need is gone, you become unshakable. This is what true strength looks like. Not loud. Not emotional. Not reactive. But controlled. Calm. Certain. A person who knows their worth. And refuses to lower it for anyone. So never beg for love. Not in words. Not in actions. Not in silence. If it's real, it will stay. If it's not, let it go. But whatever you do, never abandon yourself. Just to keep someone else. If this message changed your perspective, subscribe to Inner Steel for more lessons on discipline, self-respect, and emotional mastery. Because in the end, the strongest people are not the ones who hold on the longest.